Thank you.
I think every single person on this planet needs to be educated and re-educated about climate change. We are dedicated as the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change to embrace this education issue.
We can look into the eyes of our children, our grandchildren, and we can finally tell them that we have joined hands to bequeath a more habitable world.
L'accord de Paris pour le climat est accepté.
State Congress voted to ban abortion. Alternate universe located.
Global temperatures rise.
The effects on social media on Generation Z.
To avoid catastrophe, rising sea levels, and dying coral reefs, the epicenter of a global pandemic.
No exception for rape or incest.
Welcome to everyone to the latest in this series of Nature Positive Dialogues, a special series of interviews and live panels from COP30 here in Belém, broadcast by We Don't Have Time in partnership with the Nature Positive Initiative. I'm Gemma Parks, Head of Communications for the Nature Positive Initiative, and I'm delighted to welcome you to this session where we're going to be delving into the interconnectivity between the nature and climate crises and how we need to tackle those crises together for joined-up solutions to really achieve prosperity, well-being, and a genuinely nature-positive transition. This session is on the great mindset shift and what needs to happen in our minds to enable a nature-positive transition. How we need our culture to really evolve to embody the spirit of nature, whether that's from the intrinsic and spiritual aspect as much as the material and economic. And we're joined here today by a fantastic panel. We have Livia Pagotto, who's Institutional Director from the Arapyaú Institute here in Brazil. Also, Álvaro Almeida, who is co-founder and Latin America Director of GlobeScan. And also Marco Lambertini, the convener of the Nature Positive Initiative. And Marco actually, in addition to this, is a lead author and the commissioning editor of a fantastic book that we published this June. He's holding it in his hands. There it is.
Subtle publicity, but...
Very subtle. Becoming Nature Positive. And this is the agenda that we all need to have. It's a really worth your time to have a read. It's available online, also to download and read for free through open access. So just go to naturepositive.org/book. And you'll find it there. We're also super excited to be collaborating with Livia and the fantastic team at the Arapyaú Institute. And we are launching together with Arapyaú this week, a special Brazilian edition of this book. So it's translated into Portuguese, but with additional chapters by a range of amazing Brazilian experts. And Livia's going to tell us a little bit more about that book in a little while. But first of all, to get into our conversation today, Marco, I'm going to turn to you first. So you wrote in your chapters of this book, Becoming Nature Positive, a section on acknowledging nature's values. And that S there in values is emphasized because of the many multiple ways that nature brings value to our lives. Can you just share a little bit more on the essence of your message on that in the book, please?
Thank you, Gemma. Thank you, everybody, for joining online. So let me just by saying, maybe stating the obvious. And the obvious is that we have been always depending on nature, and that is true today as well. And this is quite intuitive, and I think most people understand that in terms of, if you think of the water that we drink or we use for our industrial processes, by the way, the air we breathe, the food we grow, the wonder materials like timber, minerals that we use in our technologies, in our lives, all this comes from nature. And I think it is intuitive. And not to mention also all the emotional dimension, spiritual dimension, even that nature inspired in us over the millennia, centuries, and today as well. But despite all this being intuitive, nature is continuing to decline at the ends of a development model that is considering nature infinitely resilient, a free input in our economy, ignoring the externality, the cost of losing nature or destroying nature. In other words, we have been taking nature for granted. And that's because nature has been, for the majority of our history as a species, as a civilization, so abundant, so powerful, so dominant, so rich, that we never really thought that we would run out of nature, basically, right? And now we are reaching a point, which is what I describe in the book as on one hand, a very daunting moment in our history. On the other hand, a very exciting moment. Daunting because today we know. Today we are the most environmentally aware generation of all times. We know better than any time before, and the impact we are having on nature. We know and we understand the great decline on nature at our hands, particularly over the last few decades when we exploded in population, in technology, in industrial development. But also is the exciting time because we understand this is now becoming a threat to us. And so today we know the impacts and we know the consequences that these impacts will have on us, on our society, economy, health, happiness, harmony in the way we see ourselves in the world. And that's an exciting new paradigm shift, mindset shift that we never really experienced before. And so that's what makes me excited about this great moment of the Great Awakening. Finally, we're beginning to understand that we should stop taking nature for granted, value nature in all its dimensions, including intrinsic dimensions, and take care of it also in our own interest. It's not just on a moral and ethical ground, which I feel personally very strongly about, but also in terms of securing our future. Nature and climate change, nature loss and climate change are a security issues for humanity.
Yes, absolutely. And it often feels that there's really a disconnect between how people feel intrinsically about nature. People will often say, I love nature, thinking about the ocean or forests or spending time in their free time, or even plants in their homes. But then to change that into actually taking action is something else. And that's what we're really getting into. How do we create that mindset shift that's needed? And I'm going to turn to you, Álvaro, because GlobeScan has just released a super interesting report called On Societal Shift, which delves into changing attitudes to environmental protection. It's pretty global and representative. You can tell us a bit more about that, maybe, please. But perhaps you could just share generally, what are some of the main findings of that on general attitudes to nature?
Yes, connecting with Marco said, I think this research covers 33 countries and fair distributed around the globe. So it is a good sample of the perception of public opinion around the world. And for us, one key finding is that most people understand that a health economy depends on a health environment, and my individual health depend on both. So it's interesting because health is becoming a kind of connection of the three P's: people, planet, and profit. Health is the key element connecting all of this. So I think it's really interesting. It's an opportunity for decision makers and also activists to explore these aspects that unite environment, economy, and individuals. So I think this is the most important insight. And of course, we identify the fatigue of the current message, catastrophic messages around climate, mainly in the global north. So people are disengaged, feeling anxiety, fear related to the environmental pessimistic environmental news. Sorry, but this is the reality, right? And the willingness to be engaged is higher in the global south. Yes, so this is also another opportunity, because in global south there's people have a disposition, despite of the constraints, financial constraints, of course, but people have this disposition to action.
That's really encouraging to hear, I think, isn't it, from those outcomes? Thanks, Álvaro. Livia, I'm going to turn to you. So the Arapyaú Institute works for a fair, inclusive and low carbon future. And I'm sure after publishing this book, there will also be nature positive, will be in there soon. It's already in your DNA, I think. Can you share, what's your view overall of nature's values?
Okay, thank you, Gemma, and thank you so much for having me here. Such a pleasure to make part of this conversation. So for us at Instituto Arapyaú, we embrace nature in a very comprehensive way, of course, as we work with business, with governments, civil society, and science. We strongly believe that nature must be at the center of all the decisions that we make, and we do that by combining with climate discussions. I don't see nature that much here at COP30, so probably this is a very good point for us to discuss. But then, of course, we are discussing what are the paradigms, development paradigms that we want to pursue, putting nature right at the center of this debate. I was just telling Marco before we went online that here at the Amazon region, if you talk to people, the 3-4 key priorities, they do not include nature. Of course, we are talking about education, health, we are talking about public security, economy. But then again, of course, as Álvaro just mentioned, everything is connected. So if you don't have a good environment, we won't have prosperity for our citizens. So we strongly believe also that Arapyaú has a role in putting different voices in different perspectives all together. This was something that we achieved by translating this book, but also translating the debate for the Brazilian reality. So nature, again, Gemma, becoming something that must be a political commitment of Brazil, of the country that we are, and the country we want to become.
No, absolutely. Thanks, Livia. And, you know, here we are sitting in Belém, right on the edge of the amazing Amazon for COP30. And it's being described as a nature COP, if not the nature COP. But another concept that we hear quite a lot about these days, and related to COP30, is mutirão, this Brazilian concept of collective solutions for common problems, which is super inspiring. It's, I think, a concept of traditional and indigenous knowledge. How can we be inspired by that? And what else can we learn from traditional knowledge?
Maybe I can say some words about it, because in the beginning of this year, very important year in terms of climate discussion and politics, we were reached out by the COP30 presidency to work on the solutions approach, because we know that Brazil is already doing lots of things and we could inspire others, but also give the sign to our countries that we need to do more, even more. That's why we launched a very specific book that gives light to solutions in both climate and nature. So because we, as we mentioned here, nature is not so obvious, not so visible for the Brazilian community, I believe in other countries as well. So this is another piece of work that makes our commitment to bringing nature into the decision-making process really concrete.
Yeah, definitely. Anything, either of you, what would you add to that?
Mutirão is an indigenous origin, and the idea is when they needed to do something big, they ask for collaboration of all to make it happen. So this is the idea, and I think it's exactly what we need to solve our climate crisis. So it's a systemic issue, and a systemic issues needs a mutirão to be solved.
Yeah, I'm just building on what Livia and Álvaro said, but Livia's, mentioned that here in the Amazon, perhaps that nature is not a priority. And I guess it's because people here see nature around them in a big way, so they don't really feel that nature is so under threat. Of course, the more marginal community to the Amazon, the one in the front line of deforestation, of illegal activities, the perception there will probably be different. And so it's all about, the way you experience nature in your individual life. But I think we need to make an effort, all of us, to take also a look at the bigger picture, because nature is local, but it's also connected globally. And climate and nature are interdependent. So there was a beautiful expression, a butterfly, flap of a butterfly in the Amazon will create an hurricane in Asia. And that to exemplify the fact that actually we need to pay attention to every element of nature everywhere in the world, because everything is connected. And it's not a natural, intuitive, and a simple concept to embrace, but it's the one that we really need to make an effort, because I really believe that talking about a nature positive transition, a transition towards a future in harmony with nature, the really first step, and that's why we have this discussion today, has to happen in our mind. Has to happen in our mind in terms of understanding the dependencies, the relationships, and the benefits. Because let's be honest, there was this beautiful book called The Selfish Gene that was talking about, how evolution has forged us to focus on our survival first. And that's why the people here focus on education, on economy, because it's survival. But now we need to actually convince our selfish gene that actually survival is about maintaining the earth system, the natural system, healthy and productive. That's the most important life insurance policy for our future. And that's what I think needs to happen in our mind.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, here we are in COP30. There's the global leaders are here. There's many of global media are here, some of whom I think are watching this session. What would be our message for them? How can we change mindsets to, we all agree that where everything is connected, we can't survive without nature. But how do we get wider mindset shift around that? Maybe Marco, first to you.
Right. So I think the message for me is twofold. I mean, back to what I said earlier, stop taking nature for granted. We are in a position today like no other species in the history of life on the planet has been. We have the power, because we are so many, because we are so powerful technologically speaking, we have the power to really alter system that we never thought would be able to change. You go to sleep, the sun goes down. You wake up in the morning, the sun goes up. This is a regular. We've been used to predictable seasons where the rain comes on that season. You can sow, harvest. All this has been stable, incredibly stable for the last 10,000 years and more. We just take that for granted. We should stop taking that for granted. We are actually today in a position we can either continue to alter the system and pay the price for it. That would be really catastrophic, because also we need to be honest about the risks. But the exciting thing is that this generation has the opportunity to actually embrace an alternative direction that develops economy, develops well-being, provide education, alleviate poverty, eradicate poverty, but at the same time respect nature.
Absolutely, yes. Livia, what would you add? What's your message?
I would say let's get inspired by nature in terms of its function, its systems, its connections that it makes. At Arapyaú, again, we are really engaged in economies that are based on nature. So we are putting nature at the center of new ways of production, consumption, relations, ecosystems, and so on. So that's why I think it's really important that we understand that we can learn from these values that goes from science to emotions. So nature has this power to send us really strong messages saying stop, but also let's do some actions based on nature.
Yes, absolutely. And you mentioned the economy. A really key theme here at COP30 is the bioeconomy, isn't it? And ensuring an equitable, sustainable, nature-positive bioeconomy. Absolutely. Álvaro, what would you add? What's your message?
I would like to bring a message that is not mine. I traveled 3 days by boat in Amazon to come here, and I interviewed indigenous peoples, riverside, and so on. And I did the same question, and the answer is listeners. All the time the answer is the same. So my message is bring people to the equation, to this equation. I think people must be part of the solution.
Yes, definitely. And we need to communicate, which is what we're doing with this panel today, but also through the book. So again, naturepositive.org/book. Do have a look and you'll be able to download it there. But I'd like to just ask Livia to share a few words about the really special Brazilian edition. It's called A Era da Natureza and has some additional chapters. But please, Livia, please share a few words about it.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you so much again for giving us this opportunity just to jump in an already great book.
And make it better and enrich it.
Yeah, maybe change it a little bit and bring in new voices and perspectives. So this was the idea, right? We engaged with some of the fellows and partners of Instituto Arapyaú. They are coming from the private sector, they are indigenous leaders, they are scientists, they are civil society leaders, and so on. And the idea was, let's make Brazilian flavor into this book. So here we can read about how indigenous people from Global South relate to nature. This is a very strong chapter that we have on the book, saying that we need actually beyond nature positive, also a positive humanity. And then we have thoughts about how can we have better investments that take into account nature, also dealing with public problems that we have in the Amazon region, for instance, that regards to violence, security, and so on. And then we have also one very interesting chapter about how nature must be a political actor. This comes from Isabela Teixeira, the former Minister of Environment of Brazil. And of course, we strongly believe that this is a good opening, but then we end up the book by saying that we need new narratives to reach people's minds and hearts, to say that nature must have a greater place if you want to change climate conditions, but also the way we relate to nature. So thank you so much again. I'm really excited to launch this book here at COP30 again.
Thank you to you, Olivia, and the whole team at Arapyaú Institute. It's been lovely to work with, and we're excited for the launch. And don't worry, if you're not fluent in Portuguese, you are not going to miss out, because the chapters have been translated into English and will be available on the Arapyaú Institute website. So do look out for those. There's, as Livia said, just an incredible wealth of wisdom and different perspectives and ideas in there. So it's really worth having a read. Marco, anything you would add on the Brazilian?
Just one thought, because this is a series of dialogues, and today we talked about values of nature. We didn't really dwell a lot on the economic dimension. We mentioned it, all of us, but there will be a dialogue that will follow, I think, in a few days, which is exactly going to focus on nature and the global economy. What has to change in the way we value nature economically? What are the problems of today, where nature basically has a zero economic value, is invisible, and can be expendable because it doesn't have a fighting chance against destructive development projects, for example. Nature is economically valuable only when it's dead. You know, a tree is valuable when it's cut down and sold as timber, not when it's part of a forest and producing so many benefits. So there will be a series of the dialogue, an episode of the dialogue that exactly will dive into that critical dimension for me, because unless we really embrace a different way to value nature in many different ways, but also economically, I think we'll still have issues.
Yeah, thanks, Marco. And it's the critical piece, I think, isn't it? Because it's real life, it's the real world. And it came out, I think, in the GlobeScan Societal Shift survey results, Álvaro, didn't it? That often, if I remember correctly, communities were saying, yes, we care about nature, we want environmental protection, but then we're hampered by economic realities. Were there any particular findings that came out of the survey on that are just on top of your head?
Yeah, just the need of a new narrative, positive narrative, trying to bring specific possibilities to people, having evidence-based achievements, but simple, clear messages and achievable, affordable actions, people to engage people in this journey.
No, absolutely. That's, as you say, a positive narrative. It's about being realistic, but also showing that there's real potential and hope to have a better future through a nature positive, people positive, climate positive way forward. Through our book, as I say, Becoming Nature Positive, we are sharing these messages, but a book, not everybody reads a book. So we have also been thinking about other ways of reaching different audiences. And so we are very excited to have produced a film, a short film called Becoming Nature Positive as well. And it really teases out those topics that come out of the book. So on the science aspects of nature positive, society, all of the topics that we've been covering today around culture, identity and different perspectives, but also the finance and to your point, Marco, economics as well, which is a critical central piece that we need in the nature positive transition to address. And so we have a range of leaders from across the sustainability space and beyond in the nature positive movement who are featuring in this short film with some stunning footage, working with Open Planet Studios. And it's going to be launched early next year. Watch out for premiere details of that. And we're very excited, but the trailer is already available. Before we watch that, Marco, anything you would say about why you wanted to create a film from this book?
No, as I said, I mean, the film is an opportunity to add more color and voices to a book, because, as you say, a book is not anybody probably liking. So it's an opportunity also to dwell on different perspectives, and that's actually part of the spirit of the book as well. There's so many contributors. It's not a one or few person's book. It's not a one or few person's film. It's a collection of perspectives with some solutions, some questions that needs to be answered still, but particularly clarifying the ambition and the excitement, the positive outlook for embracing a nature positive future.
Definitely. Thanks, Marco. And you can find out more about all of these topics on our website, naturepositive.org, also Arapyaú Institute, and of course, GlobeScan. Thank you very much to our panelists, Livia Pagotto, Álvaro Almeida, and of course, Marco Lambertini. Thanks also from me. Do watch out. We have more brilliant panels on the nature positive transition, one looking at economic aspects, science, health, food, and more. So do have a look at the We Don't Have Time website for those. And for now, let's watch the trailer of the film Becoming Nature Positive. Thanks, everybody.
Nature. It gives us everything we need to thrive. And it is our greatest ally in the fight against climate change. Becoming nature positive is our pathway to a safe and prosperous future.
The only way we can build a people-positive future is to secure a nature-positive one.
Yet we are destroying nature faster than at any other time in our history. And the effects on humanity are profound.
Humanity has become a weapon of mass extinction. And ultimately, we are committing suicide by proxy.
Our assault on nature threatens the foundations of our future.
We cannot continue to grow, consume, and not expect any consequences.
All the science we have today shows that we are in danger, but we have not yet lost it. The window is still open to turn back.
We are facing the greatest choice in the history of our species. continue with business as usual and put the future of humanity at risk? Or transition our societies, our economies, and our future to a nature-positive path?
We have created these systems, and that means that we can change them.
Nature positive is not a vision, it's something that we have to do.
We are the ones who hold the pen and can write the next chapter in the history of humanity.
Can we build a better future where both nature and humanity thrive? This is the promise of a nature-positive world.